You're on.
All right then. Well, what can I say? I'm extremely happy that you gave me this opportunity to speak to you. Of course, my dad told you that he's been talking about you, to me ever since I was a kid. Talking about your speeches, talking about who you were as a salesperson. How much of like a key person you were at NetApp. So I've lately been taking some interest in the business field as well, and I felt that if I ask you a couple of questions today, I don't know, I can kind of get your guidance to help me out in the
Sure,
future.
sure.
Yeah,
Have you watched any of my videos?
I've watched I think one or two on Tom Talks on the
Okay.
NetApp. It's about like your public speaking. I
Okay.
saw another one. You were being interviewed about how Apple got $1 billion in revenue, of course, in
Yeah.
about 1 year. So
There's quite a bit on YouTube if you're interested, and there's also a lot on Forbes.com.
Forbes.com. Okay.
Yeah. So there's a lot. There's one on goal setting you might find interesting. It's got maybe 300 something thousand views, and it actually changed my life about how you set your own personal goals, personal and professional goals as you go forward. But anyway, it's both written and then there's a video with it each time. So I think I also put out a lot of them that are only 3 or 4 minutes long on all kinds of topics. Sorry. Hang on. Hey Jerry, I'll have to call you back, okay? Bye. Sorry about that.
That's just fine.
But anyway, I just suggest you might look over that stuff later, not for now. But.
All right. All right. Well, just a little bit about me. I'm a sophomore in high school here in San Ramon, California. I'm sure you probably know where that is. Yeah. Just like you, I love public speaking. I've always been interested in speaking to new people, large groups of people. And I am also a stand-up comedian. I've done one show. It was in front of like an audience of 230 people. And yeah.
Takes courage, man.
Yeah, I mean it's a great feeling. Of course, it's gut wrenching, but it's definitely a great feeling. And I mean I've kind of always wanted to take leadership opportunities within my community. Like I started a entrepreneurship organization at my school, that type of club, and what we're doing right now as a project is interviewing local businesses and learning about entrepreneurship as a whole and kind of gaining their wisdom. But yeah, so I'm just gonna have a couple of questions, and I want to take some notes in the middle if you don't mind. If
No, I don't
yeah,
care.
this is fine. All right,
Sure.
great. So, when growing up, what exactly were your interests, and what experiences did you encounter in your teen years that may have shaped your interests today in the business world?
That's a great question. I grew up in I would say, lower middle class neighborhood. My father enlisted in World War II when he was 16,
Wow.
2 months after Pearl Harbor, so he did not have a high school education.
Okay.
His father was already dead and his mother died that year, so he had to do it on his own. And then my father's father came over from Cuba.
Okay.
Father's mother came over from Ireland. They were both immigrants. My mother's parents are both Czechoslovakian, so it's kind of like a New York thing, right? A mix.
Right.
And I bring that up because I didn't have any role models of college at all. Nobody. Not only not in my family, nobody around me. None of the parents went to college. Very different than today, right?
Yeah.
And when I was in my teens, I had to find a way, if I was going to go to college, to get a scholarship.
Okay.
And I went to public schools, obviously, given the circumstances. And so I wrestled. And I was a smaller guy, so I needed a sport. My father was a boxing champion.
Okay.
In World War II, he was the boxing champion of the entire armed services in 2 weight classes. So, but he didn't want me to fight because there's no way to get a scholarship for it.
Right.
I went to gyms to fight, but I needed to find a sport. So anyway, I took up wrestling, and I ended up getting a wrestling scholarship.
Okay, so that's where you got your scholarship.
Yeah, it's a very interesting sport because you're out there alone. It takes a lot of discipline because you can't eat. You have to make a weight, which is very different than most sports. But the biggest thing for me was you're on that mat alone. So if you weren't in top-notch shape, or if you, there was a guy on my team who was the best wrestler, but he smoked.
Oh, okay.
We
So
we
yeah,
were in a
that's not
very,
great, obviously, in sports.
not for
Yeah.
wrestling, right? And we were in a very, very big match, and he was killing the guy, and all of a sudden he couldn't go on. It was like very embarrassing. And I said to myself, that will never, I don't care what it takes. That's not happening.
Yeah.
So I think wrestling taught me an awful lot about what I could or couldn't do and overcoming limits that you think you have. And the biggest influence after that was getting into Notre Dame.
Right.
And it was, Notre Dame is a school, only 2% of the student body are from the state where the school is. So I wanted to go away from home.
Okay.
So everybody you meet is away from home. So that's unique, right? Most schools you go, there's a big chunk from wherever you live, and then there's other people that come in. So it's very different. And while I was there, it probably took me 2 years to get over being intimidated by the environment.
So, I mean, what was so intimidating about the environment at Notre Dame?
Well, the other kids all came from private school. The first day they sat us down and they talked about how many kids and how many advanced placements. I didn't know what that was. Never heard of it. Was not offered at the school I was in. And then they were trying to say, look, you're in with a very, very smart group of people, and it's up to you to keep up type thing. And they were all the SATs were higher than mine. It was just like, whoa, boy. I mean, these kids had prepped for SATs for 2 years. I walked in with a number 2 pencil the day of the test. There was
so, like, I mean, it was a very different experience for you compared to, like, other kids. So it was very intimidating at first. Okay.
Yeah. And I had a life-changing event my junior year.
Okay.
Because I was getting pretty good grades.
All right.
Not just right below 3.0 was a B. I was like 2.9.
Okay.
But I was like the most fun guy.
Okay.
I was the guy everybody wanted to be around. And I honestly did that because I had to find a way of fitting in, right? And I wasn't going to be smarter than everybody. And wrestling helped me there and kind of just I didn't have to work as hard to get similar grades. Let's put it that way.
So when did you kind of when did you set your goal that you wanted to be in the business world, or you wanted to do something related to that?
Yeah, let me just finish that thought.
Yeah.
So this guy said to me, on each floor they have a guy like he's a senior. He's supposed to look out for you and give you advice. And he said to me, Tom, you really don't work that hard. I said, I'm glad you noticed. And he said, but you still do pretty well. I said, yeah. And he goes, and I must conclude from that, you think that's going to be respected when you get out of here. That in fact, you did not work that hard, but you did pretty well.
Right.
Yeah. He goes, Tom, the reality is no one's going to care about that when you get out of here. It's not an attribute not to work hard, number one. Number two, you don't have the guts to compete with these kids. Remember, I'm on a wrestling scholarship. I'm not a happy person.
Right. So what was this person trying to tell you? What was he trying to?
It changed my life. What happened was I went out for a run, and the first half of the run, I was thinking I was going to go back and physically attack him. I was so pissed off. And then I just stopped in the middle of the run. I realized he was right. That I wasn't applying myself because I was afraid that if I did, I still wouldn't be able to compete.
So you you kind of underestimated yourself looking at the other kids around you. Okay.
Yeah. And just side topic, I was asked to speak to a kid at Notre Dame for a friend 2 days ago. He got 1580s on the SATs.
Wow.
And he has this problem at Notre Dame. He's a freshman, and he was totally intimidated. And then he ended up excelling on his finals, and it helped him. But I said to him, the key is don't worry about what other people are doing. You're not competing with them. You're competing with you.
Right.
And you just got to get the best out of you. What is your best? And from that moment on, I was never outworked again. Regardless of the result, if you just put everything you want into it or everything you have, and you know for a fact there was nothing else you could do, I've never felt bad whether we won or lost. but I never was afraid to go for it every day. And that changed my entire life, changed my perspective of life. And once I got in the business world, when I got out, I wasn't sure what I was going to do. I got in sales kind of by accident. I was going to go to law school. And then everybody I met who was a lawyer was miserable.
Okay.
And I said, and they wouldn't do it all. I asked everybody the same thing. Tell me about your job, and if you had to do it over again, would you do this job? 100% said no.
Okay,
I was
so
like, oh my God,
so
why
you
am I going to do it then?
yeah, so you didn't want to really take that path.
No,
Yeah.
like, I want to do something. So when I got in sales, here's the things that changed my life quickly. Number one, I realized I like solving problems. That's what selling's really about. When you're doing enterprise selling, not just selling it. I've never done consumer products, right? Where you don't meet the people, it's volume. I've always been selling something where you have a problem. I come understand your business like you are with these small businesses. And I come back with, I try to figure out a way what I'm selling will help your business. But I'm always thinking, how do I help the other guy's business? With that thought, most people will want to be around you because you're there to help them.
So did it so did it like work out in the beginning?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Very quickly. So after about 2 years, I was the top new sales guy and all. And then my boss got fired. But first I switched jobs and I went to another computer company that was selling completely different. First one was accounting stuff, the second one was very engineering oriented. So he started to learn a new environment, which I like. And I like the fact that it's always changing. It's not for everybody, but I like that you don't figure it out once and you're done. Like you're an auto salesman. Figure it out once.
Yeah.
It's an auto. So the second thing that happened was my boss had a problem, so they asked me to take over leadership when I was 26.
Okay.
Which was 10 years younger than anybody in my company, which was a big company.
Okay.
And immediately I realized that was what I would do the rest of my life was lead. And I wasn't, when they first asked me, I said, no. I said, I don't want to do that. I said, I'm having fun. I'm making more money than I ever dreamt of. Why do I want to inherit these problems? Why do I called it herding cats. I said, what? Why should I worry about that?
All right. I saw that interview.
You did?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was the one that now I knew I wanted to lead. And the third was what we're talking about here, which was public speaking. I was asked I went back and everybody I said this new hire sales came back stupider. So I went and saw the guy running it and I said, hey, what are you teaching these people? And he goes, you think you can do it better? I said, yeah. And basically what I talked to him about was, let me tell you, the guy who was teaching him had never sold anything. He's explaining to them how they should sell that made no sense if you're actually on the ground. And I said to him, I got up in front of the guys, let me tell you what I did when I started, what worked and what didn't work. It may sound like it's going to work, but it's not going to. And they were like this because they're like, he's done it.
Yeah.
And so I always wanted to, for every sales leadership role I had, the first thing I did was make sure I could sell the product. I got out in front of every customer, as your dad knows. I was the main salesman of the company. Now when I say it, people listen. This is not like I'm sitting in an office without doing it, telling you how to do it.
So like what was your main skill in selling and actually helping out and bringing in new solutions?
I think that's a great question. I think number one is a lot of people who sell are there to tell you what they do and what they need. As opposed to asking questions about what you need. And so I very quickly realized that the key to being a successful, really top-end salesperson is to be a problem solver. It's not to be someone who has canned slides. You got to take the time. For instance, before you go on a meeting, have you read, back then we would look at annual reports. And so if I came to you on a meeting, I would say, I've read your annual report today. It could be your website. I read your talk last year. And your top 3 problems that you've or your company has said is you need to grow faster. You need to find a way to be more productive, to cut costs, whatever those 3 things are. Then I said, I'd like 5 minutes on each to tell you how I can help on each one of those things. Now, first of all, they go, he's done his work. As people show up and they'll say, so what do you do? But they won't even ask. They just come in and tell about their product. Let me
Okay.
tell you what my product does. That is the most common thing salespeople do. Let me tell you about my product.
And then
Guys
that's
like,
when you start selling it. Right
yeah,
then.
I want to know about them and their problem. And then I say, well, if I'm understanding you correctly, these are the two things that really you're trying to find an answer to. Well, we have some solutions that address both of those. And I'll talk, let me just stick to that. And your credibility skyrockets because you listened to them, you took the time to do your homework, just like anything else. Just like when you do public speaking. I'm coming out to San Francisco to give a talk in about 2 weeks for
2 weeks,
a
okay.
sales kickoff for a company. So I'm going to be on the phone with their chairman of the board of the company, who I happen to know, and the head of sales. And I'm going to ask them, what's going on in your company? What's the challenges you're facing? What's the theme of your meeting? And when they're done, when I'm done speaking, what do you want them to feel? Not what do you want them to think? What do you want them to feel? And
Okay.
then I'm going to come up with what I'm going to say. Most people, when they do public speaking, have a speech. It doesn't matter what's going on.
Oh,
I'm
okay.
giving the same speech. And most salespeople, when they walk into a client, have the same rap. Makes no sense. Your problem's not going to be the same as the guy down the street or your dad's. So I very early on was intrigued by solving problems. And so that was very attractive to the other person, number one. Number two, they trusted me.
Right.
I never oversold it. I didn't say things. If I didn't know an answer, I said it. And number three, if I said I was going to do something, I did it. So if I said, I'll be here tonight with a manual.
Okay.
I'm there tonight with a manual. No matter if there's a lot of traffic, I don't call and say, you know what, it was a little too hard. And so, because people look at that during the selling process to say, look, if I have a problem, is this person going to be here or not? Everybody says they're going to do it when they're selling you, right?
Right.
The question is, what happens when I have a problem? Is it my problem or your problem? And if you make it all my problem, what good are you? And this, every realtor in the world tells you only the good things when they're selling you a house. Now you find out you got problems. Most of them are not going to be around. They're like, see ya, took the check, gone. The ones who aren't that will sell a lot more real estate over time. So I think that's why I was more successful than most up front. As a
Wait,
leader,
can you restate like the main reason you were so successful? It's because
well, number one, I was a problem solver. I wasn't
okay.
there to just talk about a product.
So you try to solve the problem, actually. Try to
Right.
tackle
So I
it.
took the first step is take the time to understand from their perspective what their problems are.
Okay.
And if you can do that work without talking to them, come into the meeting knowing it, as opposed to, so what do you do? Especially if that information is readily accessible. So a lot of people, what they do wrong in technology sales, let's say the chief information officer is the top guy. They go, I got to get to the chief information officer. Well, you do if you have something to say. You don't walk in and say, so tell me about your group. They're like, I got 10 minutes for you, buddy. Whereas if you take the time and talk to people who work for them before you ever go see this person, you'll know what he's told them they need to solve. You'll know that this is their biggest problem. So when you get the meeting, first to get the meeting, if you say, my understanding is this is a focus of your company, I have something that can help you out. That's an idea for a meeting, as opposed to, I'd just like to meet you. I get a million calls.
So you actually have an idea, like an actual central topic you want to talk about at the meeting,
Absolutely.
which makes you different.
And it's not a product. It's a problem that I believe they have that we solve in a unique way that can help them out. And I come prepared to talk about it.
So problem solving, okay.
Yeah, and I may find out other problems while I'm there, but people are, it's just like if you go for an interview. You're going to go for interviews for a job. If you come into an interview and you say, so tell me what your company does, you're not getting hired. Not by me. Now, if you come in and you know, because you've looked at let's use NetApp. You know what NetApp does because you've read about it.
Right.
You know, so you come in and you say, my understanding is NetApp, 25-year-old company, the chief focus is growth. How do we grow in different segments? And I know you've grown this much in this and this much in that. I have ideas, and my company has some programs that can help you grow because of these three things. You're like, okay, that's what I want to know.
Right.
I got a really fast tech server. I'm like, if I get in a race, I'll call you. it doesn't apply to my problem. So the first thing I do is take the time to understand what the problems are, and you got to figure it out by calling on people, speaking with people, doing the homework before you go up top. And the second thing is, I tell them the benefits of what I'm selling will be to their business, not how it works. They don't care how it works.
Because I'm sure that's what a lot of salespeople do, like what their product is, but not how it can help, right? Okay.
Right. So there's a guy named Jeff Immelt. He used to be the CEO of General Electric. And I was on a treadmill and I'm watching him on television. Very famous CEO. And it was during what was called a dot-com bubble, which happened in the early 2000s, where everything went to hell in a handbasket. So nothing was going on in the business world. The market was crashing. And the interviewer said, during these times, why would you even meet with a salesman? No one's buying anything. And he said something I thought was brilliant. He said, there's only two reasons ever to meet with a sales guy. To either raise the bridge or lower the water.
So that means what exactly? So
you're gonna make me money or save me money. Tell me how.
Okay, all right.
To raise the bridge or you're gonna lower the water. If you're saving me money, my revenue is the same, but it's costing me less to get it. You're gonna tell me how I could sell more of my product by using your product. We're gonna have a long conversation. That's an example. So when you walk into somebody for a meeting, you want to be thinking, what is it that I'm talking to them that's going to help their business either make money? Using my product, you can now, your salesman can do a quote in 5 minutes, which is taking them 30 minutes. Well, that's time to market. They can make that many more calls, whatever it is. What's the benefit? They don't care how it works. They want to know, is it significant enough of a benefit that I should spend my time to investigate this or not?
Oh, okay.
So the first thing that happened to me is I knew I could sell. Then I realized and I love being in technology. I love being in enterprise sales, meaning selling to companies. I don't sell to consumers. Solving a company's problems. And quite honestly, the real skill I have is not selling everybody something. It's selling a few a lot.
Okay.
Going deep into a big bank and understanding the business. Most people don't want to spend that time. The best salespeople do that. As opposed to I sell you and I move to the next one. I like that. Less accounts. And the second thing was leadership. And what I put forth on leadership is you either like to get a plaque or give a plaque.
Right, yeah, I read that.
Yeah, if you need to be recognized, think about when you go out for a baseball team. Just pick a sport. Is it important to you that everybody knows that you're the best? Not odd if it is. Well, that's fine if you're a player, but if you're going to be a coach, it's not about you. It's about developing these players and seeing all of them move
in your
on
team.
to do something.
Yeah, so it's about team growth.
Right.
All right.
So I love that. I love doing that. I love being a leader. And I knew that would be it. And being able to speak, whether it's in front of large audiences or not, it's a great skill you're developing within a meeting. Being comfortable enough to express your ideas, being comfortable enough to speak up. I say to people, if there's 8 people in a room and you're the one that answers 50% of the question, everyone defers to you, and there are real smart people that don't talk. They're not going anywhere.
So that's where leadership comes into play. So, okay.
And the ability to speak. You're very comfortable just having a conversation and giving your thoughts. There are a lot of people who aren't. They're super smart. They just don't talk.
Right.
I think it's a tremendous asset.
Right. All right. Well, moving on, talking about academics in general, knowing how important math is in the business world, I was never great at math, and I don't really like math. So will this problem kind of affect me, or not really?
I don't think it's going to. Well, it's all on what you do. I'm not good at math, and that's never my big strength. But I do think that you have to understand enough math to. Let's say you want to be in finance. Well, math is pretty important in finance.
Right.
If you're going to be if that's your thing. There are other fields it's not so important. It could affect your ability to get into the college you want. You got to be good enough to do well on tests. And most colleges testing's obviously important, but secondarily, they want to see constant improvement in your academics. They don't want to see you tail off. So wherever you are right now, and you're in 11th grade now?
I'm a sophomore.
Sophomore, 10th grade. Now, this is kind of showtime, right? This is when it counts. 9th grade on, it counts.
Yeah.
And they want to see you. So I know at Notre Dame, they look for you to be in the top 2% of your class. That's kind of the bar. Some say top 10%, but most people have to be in the top 2%. And some schools don't give out that stat, but you get the idea. You got to be a really strong student because they want to know if you apply yourself. Okay. You can be the smartest kid on the planet, but if you don't apply yourself, kind of like where I was, that's not attractive. They want to see that you're applying yourself. They look for leadership. It's a big thing on most college applications. They want to know, are you truly a leader? So you want to think about ways you do that.
Right.
And then lastly, as I say, they want to see you continually getting better and better and better.
Right. So, I mean, nowadays colleges are just starting to get even more and more competitive. It's getting pretty hard to get into good colleges. I'll be pretty open right now. I have about a 3.8. And I don't know if I can maintain that, but that's what my goal is right now. But maybe if I focus on other factors like this this project of talking to local businesses and public speaking, I don't know, maybe that could make me a well-rounded candidate.
I actually think that's very good. Yeah. Right. Do you know what kind of schools you're going to look at?
I have a school in mind. It's University of Texas, Austin. Or other good business programs around the nation, or UPenn has a pretty good, Warren School of Business. Yeah. Michigan State, I think. No, or University of Michigan. I got confused between both of them. And yeah, Berkeley Haas. So yeah, there's a number of different schools that are very competitive to get into. So right. I want to make sure that it's not just academics that I'm.
No, that's right. Yeah. You're doing the right thing. And I think, obviously, they want to see that you do more than just about you too, with the community and that kind of stuff. That's usually pretty important.
Right. So let's see, what else do we have here? So, moving on, to become such a successful salesperson, what's the most important skill everybody needs to have to build such strength? I know there's problem solving, we just talked about earlier, leadership, but is there anything else that's very, very important?
Yeah, and it's I don't know if it's a trait or an attribute, but here's the thing that really stood out to me right up front. When I went to college versus high school, where I really started to take off and enjoy myself was when I could select what I wanted to study. And I controlled my hours. A lot of people don't do good with that. Meaning, I don't need somebody, I don't want to go 8 to 5 and everybody's, and it's this class, which is high school, right? In college, you have maximum freedom to do whatever you want. And a lot of people, that doesn't go so well. They don't do it that well. When you go into a job, most jobs, they have a very defined thing that says, here's your job. You need to do this when you come in the morning. That's not sales. Sales is you need to hit this number, and you got to figure out how to do it. Now, many cases, when you're learning, they're obviously going to train you on how to do whatever they're selling. But I love the fact that it's a goal-oriented, very measurable. If you're in marketing, no one can quite tell you if you're doing your job or not. If you're in sales, there's a scoreboard. And so if you work 5 hours a week or 100 hours a week, it doesn't really matter.
It's about how much you're progressing, right? Yeah.
That I'm a very competitive person in anything I do, in sports and anything else. And I like the opportunity to win. As your dad would say, at NetApp, we talked about winning the right way, winning with class, as opposed to you can always win and treat people terribly, lie, cheat, steal. You can win. I'm talking about winning in a way you'll be proud of the rest of your life. But the key is being goal oriented, and you're gonna set your time. You're gonna set how you're gonna spend that time to make that objective. That to me is what drew me to sales and why I loved it.
Okay. Great. So knowing how involved you were with NetApp, what exactly was your journey from, zero to a huge amount of revenue within a year?
Yeah. Hang on, my 4-year-old son just walked in.
No, that's fine.
Hey, buddy, what are you doing? I'm talking. You just sit and listen? Oh, cool. Thanks. You want to come on over and say hello? Come here. So, me, this is my son, Jake. Come here, Jake. Come on. See, that's Samay. He's a young man in California.
Hi, Jake.
Yeah, say hi, Samay.
Hi.
Hi.
He just turned 4 in December. So he wants to sit and listen. See, he's going to hear the story too. It's important.
Great.
So there's a couple things that were amazing about the journey. No, you're going to hit that. Go out. Come on. We had a team of people, 4 of us that ran the company. 2 founders, both technical wizards. I ran sales. And then Dan Warmanhoven came in as CEO 6 months after me. And Dan was an engineer by training, but also a very good, strong finance background. So there was a very complementary thing there. In fact, one of the great things about NetApp is the 2 guys who founded it knew they should run it. Even they were brilliant engineers. They thought that's where they should spend their time, and they should bring in people who have done this to do it. That's not true in a lot of companies. The goal that we set at our first offsite, Dan said, what is our mission? And what we agreed our mission would be is to create a company we'd be proud of the rest of our lives. That's pretty different than we want to be on the Fortune 500, we want this much revenue. That wasn't what we talked about. We talked about creating a company. So that infused all our actions, who we hired, who we promoted. All right. He's just sitting listening. That's okay. So, the hardest thing was getting it off the ground at the beginning, which we did. When I joined, there were 3 people in sales. There's 3,000 today. We were 600,000 in revenue.
Wow.
6 billion. It's 6 billion today. So we went from the hardest year. We had to do 16 million that first year. That was very hard because no one knew what we did. And you had to make people believe in you. But we went from 0 to $1 billion 6 years.
In 6
We
years.
went from 6 years. Yeah, we went from 250 million to $1 billion in 2. Jake, come on. Why don't you go in the bedroom and have? Go in there. Come on. You gotta be quiet. All right, just be quiet. So during that rocket ride, there were a number of things that happened that broke our way. But a lot of people say, well, the internet happened and we actually dominated what the internet was built on. It happened to be the technology we had. But a lot of companies, when things slowed down dramatically in 2001 with what's called the dot-com bubble, we were more exposed than any company in Silicon Valley. A price-earnings ratio, PE ratio, 100 is very high. Ours was 650, highest on the NASDAQ. So when the collapse happened, they said no one will have a triple-digit PE. That means our stocks could go down 80%, and it did, or more.
Wow, okay.
So most companies don't survive that. But one of the things we did right is we built a culture that was not based on just these kind of metrics. It was a culture where people believed in each other and the company, and they would do whatever it took to make the company succeed, because it was like if you really care, you're on a team, you care about your teammates, you don't want to let each other down. That's the ultimate driver. You just don't want to let each other down. You'll do whatever it takes to win the right things. And so we pulled ourselves ahead of that, which most people, that's where a lot of people still studying that to figure out how we did that. And we turned that thing around and we got it to 6 million. So I think there were a lot of factors in it. We hired very well. We knew what our culture was. We hired to the culture. We promoted to the culture. Your dad can comment on all of that. But People did the right things because it was the right thing to do, not because they were threatened or intimidated. Come on, hey Jakes, I can't do this. So, it's probably a longer story. Have you ever read Dave Hitz's book?
I'm sorry?
Have you ever read Dave Hitz's book?
No.
Okay, so Dave founded NetApp, HITZ,
Okay.
and I think you would find it extremely interesting because it's written by a younger guy who was in his 20s when he founded NetApp, and he talks about he's brilliant. Dave had 1,600 on his board when he was 14. Graduated Princeton at 19. Jeff Bezos was his roommate.
Wow.
Yeah. And so he, in 2 and 3 page chapters, he covers a lot of things about what is culture. I didn't know anything about it. How public speaking is a chapter on me and him. But he does it in a funny way, a witty way. But it's really interesting to read somebody that smart talking about how we did NetApp, what we did.
So in NetApp in the beginning, you it was more about culture, right? It was all about culture, like building a culture about trust.
I think that was a key part of it. We also had a great product. We knew exactly the problem we solved, which was software development. We sped up software development. That's the problem we solved. If you were going to, Jake, stop. All right, you got to leave now, buddy. Come on. I've asked you 3 times. Out. Well, yeah, I'll see you in a little while. Thanks for stopping by. Yes. So the problem we solved, we sped up. It's called response time. So if right, most times when they talk about computers, they talk about how fast the computer is. What we're talking about is how fast can any user get response. So if you hit that key, how fast to respond, very different question than throughput. And by speeding up response time through the way that the architecture was designed, if you were doing software development, what we did was speed it up by 5 to 10 times.
Okay.
That means, and when you're doing software, you say, okay, build. At that time, it could take 10 hours. Now it would take 1. If it fails during that time, it's your value prop. So I put the sales team out where that problem existed. Silicon Valley, Austin, Texas, North Carolina. You didn't put them in New York City. You didn't put it in Washington, D.C., because that was not our market. And over time, then the internet came, and it turned out that everyone believed you should do it over Ethernet, which was the problem, the way we did ours. And we exploded. We got Yahoo. We got everybody who built out these big, what they call ISPs. The guys you on the internet use some company. They were all built on NetApp, and that's how we exploded. But we were smart enough to figure out how to change path. But every time we took a path, we excelled at it, and then then added to that path. But a lot of companies do wrong is they try to go all kinds of directions. Oh, there's revenue there, and they're not good at it. They lose their way.
So what did NetApp do exactly? They only focused on one path?
Well, no. We originally started solving software development. Okay. That's what we did. We did it faster than anything on the planet, and we could do it as fast, simple, and reliable. It was what it was called. Faster than anything else from a response time point of view, which again solved a particular problem. It was very, very simple. Mm-hmm. Anybody could plug it in, even service themselves. It didn't break. So, whereas other technologies you could use as long as you had a lot of smart people to keep it running, they could put this in a closet and never look at it again, and it worked. So, people who designed software swallowed this in a big, big way. And then, about 1995, the internet came. And their competitors had these very sophisticated, big machines. And the guys designing the software for the internet said, wait, we can put it on this NetApp device super fast for what they do because it's all I/O. It's all in and out. Right?
Okay.
No, you're not computing anything. I'm just moving the data, right? You're on the internet doing searches. Boom, boom. And they concluded we did it better than others. And then we went into design automation. BMW, Daimler-Benz. Then we went after, in the late 90s, went after energy companies that are taking large images from the ground and they got to distribute them really, really quick. So they use other things for the compute, but what we could do is have lots of people look at it very, very quickly. The other guys were more focused on compute. So we changed the whole paradigm of how people thought about going
Okay.
after. Before NetApp, back before 1985, a computer, any computer, had five things in it. You had a CPU, a network, storage, a database, and an operating system. That's what a computer was.
Okay.
And between 85 and 90, the operating system went to Microsoft. The most valuable companies on earth were created. So rather than buy it from IBM or the computer vendors, I'm going to buy the operating system from IBM, from Microsoft for years. The database went to Oracle, now a huge company.
Right.
The networks went to Cisco. Again, they didn't exist before 1985, but almost 5
Right.
years. And then the chips themselves came first from Intel. These are all. The one thing they didn't know yet was how do we store all this information? That's why NetApp was created. We can create a device that you don't have to put it in a big box, and you can store it, and we can deliver it faster than anybody else to all your devices.
So
And
that was a game changer.
Game changer. And then it was, okay, go back to the original way we started the conversation. What problem are we going to solve? So we didn't just do what we said, let's solve software development. And we did. And we did really good. That got us from 14 to 43 to 93 million.
All right.
That was, you knew you had to do more to go big. But at this point now we had credibility, we had big companies using it, showed that it worked, and then we moved into the internet. And we got very, very successful running the internet.
Oh.
And then we moved into other fields, like I say, we did it for energy, we did it for car manufacturers, because how fast you design a car is everything. If I tell you, but your software will go 10 times faster, meaning you'll develop it, means your cars will come out quicker, your chips will come out quicker. Intel became a big customer. So
Okay.
it still was around the same. We're using the technology the same way. We just applied it to different problems. And then the challenge, we had to tell the sales force, here's the problem, here's what you sell, here's the benefits to the customer, and that's how we sold.
Perfect. All right. All right. That's great. One of my last questions. We're almost there at the end.
Okay.
What steps should I take at this age, outside of what I'm already doing, to develop effective sales skills?
Okay. Well, first of all, I think you have natural sales skills, which I had too. I mean, you're very, very good, clear speaker.
Thank you.
You don't get intimidated by anything. You're very comfortable. I think what I would do is just find ways to get some internships in sales organizations when you start down that path. And I think you'll be a natural at it. I think you're a tremendous sales guy.
All right. Thanks.
You have the personality for it.
All right. Yeah. I mean, a lot of people have told me and mentioned my speaking ability and how if I don't know, develop myself a little bit more, then it could help me out a lot in the long run.
Well, the other thing is you want to get a chance to do it and see if you like it.
Right.
If you like it, you're tremendous at it.
All right. That's great. Let's see. What else?
My wife just gave me a 3 minute sign. We have to head to dinner. So.
All right. Last question then. So I've already started, a project of my business club in the community, right? Interviewing local businesses.
Yep.
But how can I expand further with this? I want to know how much more I can expand. Is it just through?
Well, is this something you're trying to make money at, or is this something you're just trying to learn from?
Trying to learn from, maybe make money from it, like if I become a little bigger later on.
Well, but I mean, just being bigger doesn't really do much for you. At this point in your life, I don't think it's about money. It's about learning. It's about. So if you're going to learn from these businesses, what are you going to do with that? What's the point of the project? What are you trying to accomplish? And I would really think through, what's your mission? What are you trying to get? And as long as you're focused on a mission and you're solving that mission and you're learning something, then you just change the mission, just like NetApp did, as you decide you want to do. So I wouldn't worry about making money as much as if you're trying to sell them something, or if you're trying to learn this data because it's going to help you later. What's the mission?
It's mostly about learning. It is
Yeah.
mostly about
Yeah.
learning about the business world, and of course, it's never going to be easy. There's going to be a lot of risk taking, a lot of failures. So I want to kind of prepare myself before I go off to college and
Well,
use
think
this.
about this. Think about this.
Yeah.
If you're gonna write a college essay,
Right.
it would be a pretty good essay if you talked about I want to be in this business, so I went and learned from all these businesses. Here's what I learned. Here's what I think as people do that works. And here's the things they do that commonly lead
Right.
to a bad result.
Yeah.
I mean, that would be very impressive, right?
I mean,
That's
most of
probably
this,
what you want to learn.
most of this is to build a good portfolio to apply to colleges. I mean, like,
I got it.
yeah, yeah,
I figured that.
yeah. I mean, of course, at my age, this is like the main focus, right?
Yeah,
And if I do want to be in the business world, then I'm gonna have to be unique. So,
Yeah.
yes.
Well, for whatever it's worth, the Mendoza College of Business was ranked #1 6 times in a row for undergraduate business. So it's one of those schools that you might want to put on your radar.
Yeah, who knows, Tom? Yeah, who knows? He can get into Mendoza College. He'll try.
You never know.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm going to have to go, guys. It's a
Thank
pleasure to
you.
meet you and speak with you.
It is very humbling
Yep.
experience, Tom. I really appreciate you sparing your personal time with my boy. Thank you very
Thank you.
much. I appreciate
Thank
it.
All right, guys.
All
I
right.
wish you the best.
Thank
All right.
Take care.
You too. Thank you.